465 BC. A woman is dragged through the corridors of the Persian royal palace, past guards who won't meet her eyes, past servants who suddenly find something very interesting on the floor. By the time she's released, she can't speak, she can't be recognized, and she's sent back out into the palace alive, on purpose, so that everyone who sees her walk past understands exactly what happens to people who get in this queen's way. The historian who wrote this down had spent his entire career recording massacres, executions, entire cities put to the sword. Almost nothing shocked him enough to comment on it directly. This did. He tells you exactly what was cut from her, and then he tells you why. And the why is somehow worse than the act itself. Because here's the part that should make your stomach turn. She was innocent. She hadn't betrayed the queen. She hadn't wanted the king. She was destroyed for a scandal she never took part in, punished as a warning. So every other woman in that palace understood the cost of getting too close to power. And this is only the opening scene. A stolen robe is about to work like a signed confession. A king's own birthday is about to become a trap he cannot talk his way out of. An entire royal bloodline is about to get wiped out, not by an invading army, but by their own family. And the man who set it all in motion, he's going to be murdered in his own bed by the exact men who were supposed to die protecting him. Ask yourself this: if you were in that palace, servant, noble, guard, doesn't matter, would you have seen this coming? Because nobody in that court did. This is Herodotus, Book 9, almost 2,500 years old, and almost nobody's ever heard it. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly why it's been buried, and exactly who walks out of this story still standing. 480 BC, Xerxes crosses into Europe with the largest army the ancient world has ever seen. A force so massive most Greek city-states couldn't have matched even a tenth of it. He wants to be remembered as a god who couldn't be stopped. For a while it works. Thermopylae falls. Athens burns to the ground. Then comes Salamis. The Greek fleet lures the Persian navy into a strait too narrow to fight in properly. Ships start ramming their own allies in the chaos. And Xerxes watches the whole thing from a golden throne he'd set up on the hillside, above the water. A throne he built so his men would always know their king was watching them. That same throne now forces him to sit there and watch his navy tear itself apart in front of the whole army. He doesn't regroup. He doesn't stay to fight another day. He leaves immediately and goes home. Xerxes wasn't overthrown. He kept his crown, his palaces, his treasury, but something inside that court cracked, and everyone felt it, even though nobody dared say it out loud. A king whose entire authority was built on being untouchable had just been humiliated in front of his own army. And a man like that doesn't just accept it and move on. He goes looking for somewhere else to prove he's still in control. He found it inside his own palace walls. And it started with his brother's wife. Xerxes had a brother, Masistes. Not some background royal, a genuine power player. He'd commanded troops in the Greek campaign and governed Bactria, one of the most strategically loaded provinces in the whole empire. Loyal soldiers, real regional authority. Royal blood, same as the king's. He also had a wife. Herodotus never even records her name. And honestly, sit with that for a second, because it tells you everything about whose stories get remembered in history and whose don't. Xerxes wanted her, and he didn't send a messenger or drop a hint. He went after her directly. She said no. Think about what that actually took. This is the single most powerful man alive, commanding the largest army and the largest treasury on the planet. And a woman with everything to lose looks him in the eye and refuses him. And it sticks. He doesn't get a second chance to change her mind. Now, most men in that position just take what they want anyway. Nobody would have stopped him. No court in the empire would have held him accountable for it. But Xerxes doesn't force it. Because Masistes isn't some disposable courtier he can humiliate without consequence. Going after his wife by force means declaring war on his own brother's loyalty at the exact moment the empire can least afford a crack like that. So instead, Xerxes gets patient. And patient is far more dangerous than angry. He arranges a marriage. His own son, the crown prince, will marry Masistes' daughter, a young woman named Artaynte. On the surface, this looks completely ordinary. Royal families married inside themselves constantly to lock down power. Nobody in that court blinks twice. But that's not why he did it. That marriage gives Masistes' entire family a permanent reason to be near the royal household, court functions, family visits, travel between palaces. Xerxes has just built himself a bridge straight into the household of the woman he wants, disguised as completely normal family business. Here's the problem with bridges, though they don't always carry what you built them to carry. Somewhere along the way, his obsession stops landing on the mother. It shifts onto the daughter, the same young woman who has just become his own son's wife, his brother's daughter, and now his secret. Herodotus doesn't give you a slow burn seduction scene. He just tells you the outcome, cold. Xerxes and Artaynte are having an affair, and here's the question that never gets asked enough. Why did she let it happen? Honestly, we don't know. Maybe she wanted the attention of the most powerful man on earth. Maybe saying no felt more dangerous than saying yes. In a court where a woman's entire safety depended on staying useful to powerful men, choice might not even be the right word for whatever she had. The record never gives her a voice, and that silence tells you something about how little women in that world were ever allowed to explain themselves. What we do know is the affair stays hidden for a while, and then Xerxes does something reckless enough to blow the whole thing open. During one of their private meetings, drunk on his own power, he swears Artaynte a royal oath. Ask for anything, and it's yours, no conditions. In Persian court life, that kind of oath wasn't just a promise between two people. It was tied directly to Ahura Mazda, the god whose favor legitimized the king's entire rule. Break it, and you're not just embarrassed. You've committed an offense against the order of the universe itself. He's expecting jewelry, land, gold, something manageable. She asks for his robe, not just any robe, the one his wife, Queen Amestris, wove for him with her own hands. Everyone at court recognizes it on sight. When Xerxes wears it in public, it says something without a single word being spoken. The queen made this. We are united if Artaynte wears it instead. That message doesn't just weaken, it flips completely in front of everyone, with zero room for denial. It's a confession stitched into fabric. Xerxes panics. He throws everything at her to make her change her mind. Real cities she could govern, unlimited gold, even an army under her own personal command. She wants the robe, only the robe. Now ask yourself, was she being reckless, or did she know exactly what she was doing? Because right now, in secret, she's disposable. Easy to deny, easy to remove. But the second she puts that robe on in public, the entire court has to treat her as something the king is now forced to protect. He hands it over, because here's the trap he built for himself with his own hands. A king can rewrite any law in the empire. He can overturn any sentence. But he cannot break a sworn oath. The robe changes hands. And somewhere inside that palace, someone is about to see it on the wrong woman's shoulders. Amestris sees the robe. She doesn't scream. She doesn't storm across the room and rip it off. Artaynte's back in front of the whole court, which, honestly, is probably what you're expecting right now. She says absolutely nothing. That should scare you more than if she had. Because Amestris wasn't powerful just because she was queen. She was powerful before she ever married Xerxes. Her father had helped put his royal family on the throne in the first place, which means every noble in that palace already knew one thing about her long before this robe ever existed. Humiliate a woman like that, and the whole court starts wondering if she's still dangerous enough to fear. And here's the twist that should genuinely surprise you. She doesn't go after Artaynte. She goes after Artaynte's mother, the same woman who refused Xerxes years earlier and never once pushed her daughter toward any of this. Herodotus says Amestris became convinced the mother had engineered the entire affair to elevate her side of the family. Whether she actually believed that, or just needed a target that wasn't her own husband, we'll never know for certain. What we do know is she doesn't act on impulse, she waits. Think about what that takes. Watching the woman who wronged you walk past you every single day at court, knowing exactly what you're going to do, and saying nothing for months, because she's not waiting for anger to pass. She's waiting for one specific day on the calendar, the one day of the year Xerxes cannot say no to her. Picture the hall on the day it finally happens. Every noble, governor, and military commander in the empire packed shoulder to shoulder. Wine being poured non-stop. The king performing generosity in front of every single person whose loyalty he needs to survive the next year. Persian tradition demanded it. On the king's birthday, any request made during the feast had to be granted. No exceptions. Refuse it in front of the entire court, and you've just admitted your own word means nothing. Amestris stands up, and in front of every governor, every general, every ambassador in that room, she makes her request: hand over the wife of Masistes. You could probably hear a cup hit the floor. Xerxes understands instantly what he's just walked into. Refuse his own queen on his own birthday in front of the whole court, and he's exposed the tradition that legitimizes his rule as a lie. Agree, and he's handing an innocent woman to a queen he already knows is capable of anything. He tries to fix it quietly first, pulls Amestris aside mid-feast, offers her anything else. Different terms, different gifts. She's not negotiating. She picked this exact moment specifically because it can't be walked back. So he runs straight to his brother instead, without explaining a word of it. Tells Masistes to divorce his wife voluntarily. Offers him one of his own daughters as a replacement marriage. Let that sit for a second. The same man secretly sleeping with one of Masistes' daughters is now offering a different daughter as a swap, trying to make the danger disappear without ever admitting where the danger came from. Masistes says no, flat out. He has no idea what's actually happening. All he knows is his brother is pressuring him to abandon a wife he loves, with no real explanation given. He refuses without hesitation, and now Xerxes is out of moves, trapped by a tradition he can't override, a wife who outplanned him completely, and a brother who won't cooperate with a rescue he doesn't even know is happening. He says yes. The most powerful man alive has just been maneuvered. By his own customs, his own oath, his own family, into approving something he desperately does not want to happen. Guards come for her that same night, pulled from her own quarters, the one place in that entire palace she should have been safe, and marched through hallways she'd walked 1,000 times. Except this time, nobody meets her eyes. We're not going to walk you through every detail of what happened in that room. But we're not going to look away from what it means, either. Herodotus records that she was mutilated, deliberately, targeting the features tied to status, to identity, to the simple ability to appear in public and be recognized as who she was. She wasn't killed. That's the part that should hit you the hardest. She was kept alive on purpose and sent back out through those same corridors, past the same guards, the same servants, who had seen her walk through whole just hours earlier. That's not an accident. That's the entire point. This punishment was never meant to be hidden or explained away later. It was built to be seen by every noblewoman quietly recalculating her own position at court, by every family weighing whether crossing this queen was worth the risk. The message didn't need a single word. It was written directly onto a human body, and it was read by everyone who saw her pass. And remember what she actually did to deserve this. Nothing. She wasn't the one who had the affair. She was the one who said no to the king in the first place, years earlier, and never once encouraged what happened between him and her daughter. She was punished for a scandal she had zero part in, chosen specifically because her suffering would be seen, remembered, and repeated in whispers across every corridor of that palace. When Masistes gets home and understands what's been done to his wife, something inside him doesn't just break, it snaps completely. He doesn't ask for an audience with the king. He doesn't wait for an explanation. He gathers his sons, he gathers his household, and he rides east, toward Bactria, toward the one army in the empire that's actually loyal to him. This isn't a quiet family exit. A royal governor with real military experience, real regional loyalty, and now a legitimate reason for fury, riding hard toward the exact province where he commands troops. Everyone at court reads this instantly for what it is. If Masistes reaches Bactria, this stops being a family tragedy overnight. It becomes a civil war. Xerxes doesn't send envoys. He doesn't try to talk it out. He sends cavalry with one order: catch them before they reach the border. Kill them there. They catch up on the open road, dry ground, no palace walls, no golden throne, nothing but dust and steel. Masistes and every one of his sons are killed on that road. Not in a courtroom, not in some grand battle worth remembering. Cut down in the dirt, an entire branch of the royal bloodline wiped off the map in one afternoon. Back at the palace, life just continues. Taxes get collected, construction keeps moving, but something has shifted permanently in the mind of every noble who serves near that throne. They just watch their king get completely outmaneuvered by his own rituals. Unable to stop a punishment he never even sanctioned, and then personally order the execution of his own brother over a scandal he started. Ask yourself the question every single person in that court was suddenly asking themselves: if the king's own blood isn't safe, am I? That question doesn't fade. It sits in the back of every whispered conversation from that point forward. It waits. For 14 years it waited. 465 BC. The answer finally arrives. In the dark, in his own bedroom, Xerxes is murdered in his sleep. The man behind it is Artabanus, commander of his royal bodyguard. The one man in the entire empire whose sole job was making sure nobody could get close enough to kill the king while he slept. He doesn't act alone. A eunuch with direct access to the royal chambers helps him get inside. Sit with that for a second. The man guarding the door and the man holding the key, working together from inside the tightest circle of trust the empire had. These aren't outsiders sneaking in through a window. These are the men who stood silently beside Xerxes for years, who watched Greece collapse, who watched an affair spiral into a mutilation, who watched an entire bloodline get erased over a robe. At some point, the men closest to him simply stopped seeing a king worth dying to protect. But Artabanus isn't finished, and neither is the story. He doesn't just want the king dead, he wants the throne. So he goes straight to Xerxes' younger son, Artaxerxes, and tells him his own older brother Darius murdered their father to seize the crown. Grieving, young, and trusting the one man who's always seemed loyal to the family, Artaxerxes believes him completely, and Darius, the rightful heir, is executed before he ever gets a chance to defend himself. For a brief window, Artabanus effectively runs the empire. He's killed a king, framed an heir, and installed a grieving teenager on the throne who owes him everything. There's just one person left he completely failed to account for: Amestris. She's just lost a husband and a son in the space of days. And she is nowhere near finished reading this court. She's the same woman who once turned a single piece of woven cloth into a public execution. She understands exactly how information moves through that palace, who can be trusted, who's lying, who benefits from the chaos. Piece by piece, she works out what actually happened, that Artabanus engineered both deaths, and that her surviving son was used as a weapon against his own brother without ever knowing it. She goes to Artaxerxes directly, lays it all out, and once the doubt takes root in him, it grows fast, faster than Artabanus ever expects. Together, mother and son set the trap. In front of the full court, Artabanus is confronted, and the guards who used to answer to him no longer do. He's seized on the spot, along with his allies, and executed in the same throne room he thought he already controlled. Now look at what's actually left standing by the time this is over. Masistes, dead on a road, his sons, dead beside him, his wife, alive but never whole again, Xerxes, killed in his own bed by the men sworn to die protecting him, Darius, executed on a lie he never got to disprove, Artabanus, put to death by the very court he thought he'd already won, and Amestris, still standing, still in power, now ruling from behind her surviving son's throne as Queen Mother. The woman history remembers as a monster is the only major player in this entire story who never loses. Everyone who crossed her, used her, or underestimated her ends up dead. That's not luck, and it's not just cruelty either. It's someone who understood the real mechanics of power in that court better than the king himself ever did. So here's the last question worth sitting with. In a world with no real rules, where loyalty gets rewritten overnight, and even royal blood isn't protection, is being feared actually the safest place to stand? Herodotus wrote this down almost 20,500 years ago, and it's barely mentioned outside academic circles. Now you know exactly why. If you want the next buried chapter of ancient history dragged into the light, subscribe. It's what decides whether stories like this keep getting made.